There are currently 4 known grades of Meito. The Supreme grade, there are 12 of those. The Great grade or Excellent grade, and there are 21 of those. The Skillful grade, and there are 50 of those. And just a grade, and that's an unknown number. The deeper we go into the story, the more I enjoy talking about blades, because you start to realize just the resounding impact that they will have on the conclusion of the story. When you think of blades, you can't not think of the sword god in Ryuma. You can't not think of Mihawk and Yoru. And then obviously our favorite Marimo, Zoro. And we're going to talk about it because now I just have this question about what is going to happen to Zoro's blades. Which one will be turned into a supreme grade blade? There are only 12, so what is next? If you do enjoy blades as well, half as much as I do, drop a like and subscribe to the channel as well, because there are things we have to dissect, right? Maybe some inconsistencies, but we'll get into it. First, Zoro. Zoro's blades. Wado Ichimonji, Enma, Sendai Kitetsu, and I guess we can talk about Shusui. So first, Wado Ichimonji. Wado Ichimonji is a great grade Meito, and now we know Wado was forged by the legendary swordsmith Shimotsuki Kozaburo, where a lot of people feel like Zoro is a Shimotsuki, so Wado is inherently more powerful because of the will passed down by this clan, this lineage. But because Zoro owns Wado, it helps with him controlling Enma. Wado was Kuina's blade, and I think Wado has the best chance to become a black blade because of the history of battle with this blade, and he spent the most time with it. And it makes more sense, it means more to him than any other blade. Why not Wado? Sendai Kitetsu. I think eventually Sendai will be no more, it will not be with Zoro. Sendai Kitetsu could be replaced with Nidai Kitetsu, right? With Zoro leaving Wano, we'll then have 3 great grade blades. Then we get to Enma. Enma is one of the strongest swords that we've seen in the series, but it is not a supreme grade blade. Think of Shusui as well, one of the strongest blades. The owner of the blade was the sword god, literally the sword god, someone who was said to never have lost, protected Wano from every single individual that was trying to pillage and take Wano's resources. Not a supreme grade blade. There are only 4, at least that we know of. Yoru, Ace, Roger's blade, Shodai Kitetsu, and the Mura Kumogiri, and that's Whitebeard's Naginata. 3 of these individuals, Mihawk, Whitebeard, Roger. They're literally at the peak of the One Piece world, the greatest swordsman and 2 of the greatest pirates of all time. But there is some inconsistency, right, that I want to talk about. Or it could be viewed as inconsistency. I could be wrong, but let me point it out to you guys. We have to go back to Dressrosa, where Zoro has a quick flashback about his conversation or training with Mihawk, where they talked about his swords and black blades. That's where Mihawk tells Zoro that he has to treat every nick as a mark of shame, and that every weapon can be turned into a black blade like his. And he says, no liquor until you've mastered this feat. So either Zoro has been intentionally not turning his blades into a black blade, or he mastered how to permanently turn his blade into a black blade. Now, maybe Mihawk wasn't literally saying a blade turning into a black blade like his, but maybe just the color black, the armored haki side of things. So yes, every weapon can be turned into a black blade like his in regards to temporarily assuming the characteristics of a black blade. But Mihawk typically speaks in absolutes. Yeah, there's been things before where he talks about his blade knowing no restraint, and for Yoru going after Luffy and not accomplishing its goal, for Yoru going after Whitebeard not accomplishing its goal. What does Mihawk mean here? So I mentioned inconsistency, right? But of course that could be explained away as him saying just armored haki. That's him using it in order to backtrack and go back and say, well, that's just what he meant. But what does it mean to turn a weapon into a black blade? The only 2 black blades that we know of in this story, Mihawk's Yoru and Ryuma's Shusui. We have Whitebeard with his Naginata, the Muro Kumagiri, not a black blade. We have Roger with his Ace, not a black blade. Now, the conversation or argument was, well, it seems that for swordsmen to build this bond with your blade, to turn your blade into a black blade, you must have a bond. It's a journey, and the care that you show to this blade, it turns it into a black blade. I think that may have been debunked. I don't think that's the case anymore. Because if that's the case, what deeper bond could you have other than Roger naming his son after his blade? And I recently talked about Roger's blade and his connection because of the name Ace, etc. And people were saying, well, Rouge named Ace. That wasn't Roger. And for people that say things like that, I wonder, did you just skip things? Literally in the canon story, Rouge says, Ace. Those were the names he chose. Our child's name is Goldie Ace. Our child. Meaning she named Ace based on the names that Roger gave. I believe it was Ace and Anne. if it was a female. So Roger cared enough to leave a name behind for his son. So I think that confirms the bond that he had with his blade. Now, something I want to point out here, because we got information from Hitetsu in regards to black blades, or actually turning swords into black blades, as well as Gyukimaru, or Onimaru, however you want to classify him. But at that time, he was transformed into Gyukimaru. So he was asking Zoro the question, do you understand the value of the great Shusui? Then he went down the list of Ryuma's accomplishments and what Ryuma meant to Wano, and he did all of this with Shusui. And then he said Zoro was being overestimated because Zoro didn't understand the simple things or just the reasoning behind transforming your blade into a black blade. He then said Shusui was forged through Ryuma's history of battle. But then this is important. This is what I want to focus in on. You said, so I ask you, are you but some greedy boy with little thought aside from your own base desires? And Zoro's confused. He said, you said forged? I was wondering about that. Do you mean its black color came from, that was it? Now, what does this tell me? First off, I think for a black blade, and why the people of Wano want or need Shisui in Wano is because Ryuma, Shimotsuki, the will is passed down, especially for the Shimotsuki. So they get stronger using the blades of their ancestors. Ryuma seems to be Shimotsuki Zero because it's a literal translation there. But for the most part, Shusui is tied to Wano. Ryuma's entire life was spent protecting Wano. My thought is that for Shusui and Ryuma, he didn't only care about his desires and his goals. He cared about the swords as well. Meaning, Ryuma did all that for Wano, not only because he wanted to do it, but because that was the sword's will. It wasn't just about his own desires. He cared about the desires of the sword. He could listen to his blade. Now, I'm not saying Roger, Shanks, and Whitebeard don't care about the desires of their blades, but being highly ambitious men, Roger wanting to be Pirate King, having that ambition, Whitebeard wanting to protect his family. Is it really about the blade at that point or about the man? Could Roger afford to listen to his blade and follow the whims of his blade? It's all about Roger's desires. You could say it was selfish, but it was about what Roger wanted. He wanted to become the Pirate King. He wanted to discover the world. Is that what a blade would desire? Again, Shusui has connections to Wano, is connected to Wano. For Whitebeard, he wanted to protect his family. He wanted a family. Would a blade have those desires? For Mihawk and Yoru, this blade, it was chasing greatness. Mihawk was going around fighting the strongest people everywhere, for the most part, at least. He even said in Marineford, my sword knows no restraint, where his sword had its own will. Yukimaru talking about Zoro's own desires, his own base desires, tells me everything I need to know about black blades. You have to listen to the will of the blade. The will of the blade is important. Until you know what the blade wants, you will never know what it means to have a black blade. And obviously, Zoro will eventually figure that out because Hitetsu, he talks about not only Wado Ichimonji and its connection to Enma and how it enhances the use of Enma, but also that Enma is not yet forged into a black blade and that its rank might yet be raised if it does become a black blade. So then, Zoro would need Aikitetsu and Wado Ichimonji. I think the foreshadowing is there for Enma to become a black blade. I think Wado Ichimonji has the best chance to become a black blade. At this point, why not Nidai become a black blade as well? Because Zoro's going to understand the ability to connect with his swords and understand the will of his blades. But what is the will of these blades? Well, for Odin's blade, Enma, you can say it's tied to information, the world. And Enma could be tied to what Odin was trying to accomplish with Roger and the Pirate King. So therefore, it could be forged the more they find out about the world. Which for Zoro, he's tied to Luffy, so they're going to find out a lot. For Wado Ichimonji, it's tied to greatness. The base desires of the blade, meaning what were the original desires of the blade? Are you fulfilling the desires that the blade was originally intended for? Wado Ichimonji's intention was to become the greatest. Zoro's on the path to become the greatest. Wado will inevitably become a black blade. Enma will inevitably become a black blade. And at this point, why leave out Nidai? Zoro at the end of the story will have 3 black blades. You can book it. It's almost confirmed at this point. But guys, give me your thoughts. How do you feel about all this? Do you think Zoro gets 3 black blades? I think bare minimum 2. It's inevitable because his name will be known in the heavens. And I think that's cool how you tie it into, Sword God. But guys, give me your thoughts. Make sure to like the video if you did. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BroggoDAce. Follow me on Instagram at BroggoD.ace. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys all so much. Guys, be sure to like and subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
okay. I start doubting me, I felt lost. I rewrite it.